Alright guys, so as you can see, I'm back in my workshop, and that's the case for the BR-44 that I started while I was at my daughter's house. And what I wanted to show you here is I went ahead and reused the original handle. I mean, it doesn't look the greatest in the world, but the thing's 90 years old, so I think it turned out okay. I was gonna go ahead and make a new one. I actually have some new buffalo hide here that I bought, but it's thinner, and it would took double thickness to make it. And I decided that since I'd soaked that, if you guys remember, I soaked it in some leather conditioner for about a week. It kind of absorbed all that, and so it's actually pretty supple right now. I flipped it upside down so the stitching, the good stitching, showing. I think it doesn't look half bad. So now this is it, and I'm getting ready to start replacing some of these components. You can see I've got a bunch of components pulled. I've been pulling them, comparing with my schematic. I'm going to start changing some of those. The other thing I got accomplished, when you look down inside there, I got my 3-watt resistors for the Philco right here, for that Philco signal generator, to replace the 1-watters I put in there. So these are 3-watters, and I got a pair of 10Ks and a pair of 18Ks in order to get my 5 and my 9 that I need. So I'm going to get those in. I also got my knob. The knob that was broken is this bottom one right here. And I got that knob from a gentleman. I got a pair of them for $10. And so it's on there. I've got the red dots all painted on all of them now. So once I get those resistors installed and I get the remainder of my screws polished and installed, I can clear coat it, but I'm not going to be able to do that for a while. They're not calling for any warm temperatures around here for a while, so that'll be for another probably a month from now. I'll get a nice day and I can take it out there and clear coat it, and that will be done. The other thing that I bought regarding this Philco, as I told you guys, I want to keep these original pin fittings. So let me show you what I got. So I've got this bag of, I think there's 20 of these pin fittings, red and black, and they're screw terminal. Once you get the plastic off of here, it's a screw terminal, and they actually fit here perfect in there, perfectly in there. Very nice. Now they're notched. I might knock a notch off because when it's fully inserted, it's, get that pushed in there. It's in there. Yeah, I still got about 1/8 of an inch in there. Sorry for my horrible camera work here. But anyway, I got some black one and some red ones. I can create some leads for here. And to go along with that, I bought me a roll of this coax cable that I'm going to make my leads out of, so they'll be shielded. I got that, and I got some ends for it as well, so I can create some shielded cables for all these signal generators and stuff that I'm restoring. So, but yeah, so I'll create some cables for this, and that sucker will be ready to go. I'm real happy with this Philco. Real happy with it. Looked great on the scope. So anyway, that's where I am at right now. I want to give you guys a quick update. So, and then next time we come on board, I should have some of this stuff changed out, and we'll go from there. Oh, I did test my tubes, by the way. iTube is not in here right now. iTube checked good, and each of these 2 tubes checked good. So that's all good. All I gotta do is get the rest of this updated, and we'll be ready to give this sucker a try. Okay, so now that we're back down here in the shop again, I'm going to start the electrical restoration of this BR-44 bridge comparator. And if we look at my electrical schematic, I've got two 20 microfarad electrolytic capacitors right here. We're getting ready to change those out. I'm going to change them out with 22 microfarad electrolytic capacitors. This is it right here. This is a two-part 2020 150 volt working voltage, and what I've got here to replace it with are two 22s at 160 volt working voltage right here. 22 and 160. So that's what we're going to put in it, and it runs from down here on this negative jack, which is actually ground. You can see the ground wire running all around, and the ground runs throughout this thing. So we're connected to ground there, and then we're connected at the 6SD7 right here. We've got coming up and tying in and going over there to the cathode. So we're going to go ahead and change those out. I also have a resistor that's running between those two, which if we look at the schematic is this one right here, this 8K, I think that is. Look at our magnification. Yeah, that's my 8K. That 8K resistor is between those two. So if I'm showing you, yeah, that 8K is between those two. So let's go ahead and snip this out. We'll go ahead and just snip this out. Try to anyway. I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail there, and so we can get in easier. That in, and that in, and that's it right there. Alright, now the first thing we're going to do is get this stuff off of this terminal here. I've got to almost every joint on this thing is crystallized, so I'm probably going to resolder every physical joint in this comparator. So I think I'm going to go ahead and take this wire right here off, because I've got plenty of wire there anyway. So I think I'm going to take it off and just clean this whole terminal up, and I'll bring it back instead of keeping it running when I get those off of there. Okay, I got the terminal cleaned off right here. I got it all out of there. Let me see if we can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, so it's this one right here. As you can see, I can get my pick completely inserted in there now. But that, I took my solder wick and I cleaned that all off. It's all good to go. So now I'm going to clean the lower one down here, and once I get that stuff cleaned up, I'll get the resistor and the wire connected back up here and the new cap, and we'll come back. As you can see here, that's the two electrolytics, the 222s. There's the 8K resistor in there. Everything's cleaned up. There's that wire back on there. So I'm getting ready to solder this stuff. And I'm going to put just a little drop of stuff on here. Flux, liquid flux, just to help things out a little bit. And we'll get some solder on here. See if we can get this. Alright, get some solder on here. And see what we can do here. wires out of my way here. Yeah, that's got that. Alright, then we'll go down here. I think that's got it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to these additional paper capacitors over here and sweat the rest of these joints, and we'll come back. So what I've been doing here is I'm working on this tube, the 6SH7 GT tube, and looking at the schematic here. Get you where you guys can see. I replaced this 15K and this 47K, basically this voltage divider here on that 6SH7, which is this in here. That's the 15, that's the 47. You see this long black wire, this actually is going down to this 0.025, which I substituted an 022 for it. It had a big old long lead that went to there, okay? And that's the sensitivity on-off switch. Now, I pulled this range selector switch out because it was all corroded, cleaned it all out, lubricated it, used the oxide on it, used my brass brush on it. There is a little single-ended calibration pot, which on my schematic is right here. You guys see that? Coming from the range switch, and it goes to ground. And you can also see I got 1K here. That's because this calibration pot, I had no idea what the value was. I talked to Bob. Bob said I would use a 1K here and see what you get. He wasn't too far off, because when I got this calibration pot out, which was all corroded and green, I cleaned it all out, and it's got a broken wire inside of it. You can see where the actual terminal is, approximately right here. Here's the beginning, come around, here's where it's at, and it ends right here. It's sitting right there. The break is about right here. And at this point of the break, it's about 930 ohms. So I got a feeling, based on the location of this is probably like a 1500 or 1500, 2000, probably 1500K calibration pot. The wire is broken, I can't fix it. So I'm thinking it's sitting, based on where it's at, it's probably sitting at around 1200, 1300 ohms. So here's what I did. I have this 2K pot that I've added some leads to, and right now if I aimed you up so you could see my MFP, if you guys can see that, it's sitting at 1362. That's where I set it at. I figure that's where I'm going to set it to start with, and then we'll see what we get. My plan is that I'm going to get some double-sided, good 3M double-sided tape, and I'm going to stab it down right there, because that's the best place. I was going to put it here, but it's so close to the edge, even if I turn it, it may clear the case, but it's going to be a super tight fit to all this. So I'm thinking I'm just going to mount it down there, run my wires, the one over here to the range switch and the other one to the ground, and that's what I'm going to do. So let me get that done, and we'll come back. Okay, so here's where we are. I've got it, all the parts are replaced in it. I just went ahead and replaced all the resistors, obviously all the capacitors. Got new electrolytics in it. There's that calibration pot I put in there, the 2K. I've got it down with some double-sided 3M tape. It's on there very secure. And right now, I've got power on. I got 117 volts AC going into it, pulling 90 milliamps. And as far as the DC across the cap there, electrolytic, I've got 110.8. Nothing smoked. I haven't tripped my breaker. I'm an electronic circuit breaker. So I don't have any voltage. I have nothing to check on this that I know how to check, because considering I had to create my own schematic, which is what I've been working off of here. I got filaments lit. I don't know if you can see them or not. There's the I-tube filament. It's lit. Let's look at the viewfinder. There you go. That one's lit there. And maybe if I pull these wires back here, that one's lit. So the filaments are all lit. So I think I'm going to tidy up the transformer wires a little bit and mount it back in the case and just see if anything looks like it's even close to working on it. Maybe I can prop it up outside the case too. That might be the better thing to do. In fact, I think that is what I'm going to do. I'll prop it up on my little orange dealy whoppers here and see if it does anything. I'll bring it back. So you have to excuse the noise in the background because my furnace is running as well as a little heater in here. I wanted to show you guys the I-tube is actually working well in this, other than I wish it was a little bit brighter. You can see it's nice and bright with the lights dimmed in here. And when I adjust this sensitivity knob, you can see it's opening and closing properly. And my sensitivity knob will slow down the sensitivity of it. So I think everything's working okay. I need to get this thing mounted back into the case, but I need to try and adjust a couple of things on it first. But I did want to show you that this is working properly now. I want to see if I can adjust a couple of those resistor values I have in here. I couldn't read the resistors, so I estimated. And I want to use my decade box and see if I can make things more accurate. I've got it so that when I'm testing a resistor, I put a 100 ohm resistor and it opens the eye at about 130. And I have it set so it do a 1000 ohm resistor. It's right on the money. But when I go down to a lower value or up to an higher value, it goes off a little bit. So I'm going to see if I can play around with some of that and see what we get.